What can I say? So what you're getting is an idiosyncratic list of movies that I happen to like with my family, or I'm going to play a song, St. Vladimir's Choir, Praise the Lord, because with our choices, especially our choices with our leisure, we are called to praise the Lord. Use our freedom to do things that are up. That song, yes, is striking music, hearty music for us, and brings us to a new level of freedom. With that, I'll close. This is Dr. Albert Rossi for Ancient Faith Radio asking me, and when I ask me, I hope that I am generous to support Ancient Faith Radio, both with my prayer and with my and our finances.
Dr. Rossi is the author of the Ancient Faith publishing book, Becoming a Healing Presence, available at store.ancientfaith.com. This has been a listener-supported presentation of Ancient Faith Radio.
The Ancient Faith for the Modern World. This is Ancient Faith Radio.
Welcome to Healthy Minds, Healthy Souls with your hosts, Father Nicholas and Dr. Roxanne Lowe, where we will connect our Orthodox faith to day-to-day living in relationship to our family, our work, and our view of ourselves. Father Nicholas is the priest at St. John the Divine Greek Orthodox Church in Jacksonville, and Dr. Roxanne is a licensed clinical psychologist who uses her extensive training in private practice. Your questions are welcome by calling 855-237-2346. That's 855-237-2346. Here now is Father Nicholas and Dr. Roxanne.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Healthy Minds, Healthy Souls. As many of you know by now, our show merges faith and psychology to help us navigate through the daily struggles that life brings all of us from time to time. I'm Dr. Roxanne, and I'm joined by my husband and co-host, Father Nicholas Lowe, and we team up at the community of St. John the Divine Greek Orthodox Church in Jacksonville, Florida, where we serve and minister to a fabulous community there. And so shout out to everybody from St. John the Divine who might be tuning in tonight. Well, before we get started with this evening's conversation, we want to encourage you to stay connected to us throughout the week. If you enjoy these podcasts, you can do so by connecting to us on all of our various social media accounts, which can all be found under the heading of The Lowe's. And that is an interesting spelling for those of you who haven't seen it yet. It is Louhs, The Lowe's. We also invite you to join our inspirational messages that we're sending out daily by going to our website at thelowes.com and clicking on the subscribe button. Well, for tonight's show, we want to remind you of how you can join us. We love your comments and your questions, and I know tonight there are many of you who are going to be able to relate to tonight's topic. So to call in, you can give us a call during the show at 1-855-237-2346. You can also join us for the live streaming of our show on social media. If you want to connect, and there are already several of you who are online, welcome to all of you who are in that Facebook chat room. Just go to Ancient Faith Radio's Facebook page, and the show is streaming live, and you can simply type in your questions to us directly throughout the show, and we're going to obviously stay connected to trying to read everybody's comments throughout the show and bring those up on air. So tonight, we are very, very excited to be speaking about a topic that is near and dear to our hearts, and one that hits home for probably almost every family trying to make it in this, modern world, living their faith in this very busy time that we live in. And so we're talking tonight about living with simplicity and mindfulness and intentionality. And wow, aren't those three enormous words, but communicate so much. So here to speak with us this evening are two people who are no strangers to ancient faith, Molly Sabrin and Cynthia Damascus. And I'm just going to introduce them to you because they have a phenomenal ministry that they've teamed up to bring all of you. And it's called Filled with Less. And you can find out about it on filledwithless.com. They have a 6 weeks to sanity course that they team up to bring you. And they offer so many wonderful resources in this specific area of living with mindfulness and intentionality. For those of you who may not know, Cynthia Damascus is a functional nutrition and lifestyle coach. And she coaches people in her own practice to live healthier lives. She's an author of The Holistic Christian Women, a podcaster and blogger for Holistic Christian Life. And in her practice, she works with people all throughout the country to improve their health and well-being and to reach any goals that they have in their life. And Molly Sabrin is an author and podcaster with Ancient Faith Ministries. She's also a wife of 20 plus years to her husband, Troy, and a mother of 3 teenagers and 1 young adult. In her journey of seeking to live with intentionality and peace, and her story is really interesting. I got a chance to hear it at the Ancient Faith Women's Retreat a couple of years back, which she found in decluttering her own home. She also really found that there were so many other areas of her life that she realized she could set some goals on and declutter those areas as well, and it really brought her such peace. Molly is passionate about helping people pursue and simplify this sort of dream in their own lives, and to sort of create this more calm existence and to live more mindfully. So without further ado, we want to hear from you guys. So we are honored to welcome Cynthia and Molly to the show. Welcome, guys.
Hello.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yes,
we're so excited. We want to learn how to be, as we said before the show, filled with less. That's something that, Nick, I know we talk about all the time. Trying to simplify, trying to downsize, trying to declutter, and just sort of walk through life with intention. So can you tell our audience, what does it mean to live with simplicity and intentionality?
Well, it basically means to get off that hamster wheel that we so often feel like we're on, that's full of expectations of other people who do not have the same priorities we do, and just start living by our own priorities. And I think that most people who are listening to this podcast probably have in common a number one priority, which is our faith. So we're looking at our lives through the lens of our faith and living it out accordingly. So it's just stop letting people tell us how to live, full of materialistic endeavors and impressing people, et cetera, and just simplify and have Christ-centered calm in our lives.
Isn't that so true? You said it so beautifully, Cynthia, and the fact that of that intentionality and how so much of our society right now wants so much to fill our lives with so many things that, to be quite honest with you, if we're not careful, we can just find ourselves just being in this hurry up lifestyle where we're just kind of hurrying and doing so many different things. And probably at the end of the day, some of us, I know there's times that you just think, what did I actually get done? What
my goodness.
What was something that actually fed me in the process? And I love, when we say this a lot in our own ministry, but the importance of intentionality. So I appreciate hearing that.
Do you find that people know their priorities? I mean, when you sort of ask this question, sometimes if I talk to somebody about their values and what they're trying to ascribe to live by, I find that sometimes that question strikes people in a way that they have to really step back and go, what do I value? Do you ever find that, with clients or individuals that you work with that come to you, do you find that they're not sure, what are my priorities to begin with?
Oh, absolutely. Because so often they've been living by secular expectations for so many years, or just, just trying to stand upright every day while trying to raise a family, that even looking at that deeper is something that they've never done. And a lot of times when I'm working with clients, they will state their priorities to me, but then you see that changing as we work together because they go deeper and deeper and deeper and then understand, what, say, their top 5 are. And they keep reordering them. And I love to see that process.
Molly, just, trying to, kind of building on this topic of just intentionality and being filled with less, what do you see are some of the biggest stumbling blocks that all of us kind of face to having that inner peace? So many times we just want to have this inner peace, but what do you see are some of the biggest stumbling blocks to that?
Well, I think just like what Cynthia said, I mean, first and foremost, and as you mentioned, we don't always pause to even think about what we're doing. We live such a reactive life instead of proactive. And so we could be, going at this pace without even stopping to think, gosh, is there a better way that I could be handling this? Because what happens when we live reactively is a lot of times we're just mindlessly consuming. We're consuming content that is stressful. We're not thinking, so we're just like doom scrolling on our phone. We're watching hours of cable news, or or even our thoughts. We are not even thinking about. There's all of these negative thoughts, these judgmental thoughts, these catastrophizing thoughts that are swirling around in our mind. And if we are not being proactive about guarding those thoughts, we are just letting those land, take root, and spread. And that's causing so much inward turbulence. And there's also, of course, clutter or just disorganization. So when things feel chaotic, when our home feels chaotic, our workspace feels chaotic, it often leads to avoidance because we don't want to deal with the chaos. And then it's this vicious cycle. And that is also something that causes a lot of inner turbulence. So there are a lot of things that when we're not being proactive, just slip in without even realizing that these are weighing on us very heavily.
I remember as you're talking, Molly, I was remembering one of my classes at the seminary where one of my professors had said to us that, as priests, whenever you go to someone's home, observe it. Watch, look around, observe, do you see a lot of clutter? Are there a lot of things that just, not to where it would be in a judgmental way, but just in an observing way to kind of see what that parishioner may be going through. And so, and I know there's so much to being filled with less, but just in this one area of just collecting and clutter and just things in our own lives that we just are unable to because we're so drained in every other area to do, is that how it reflects even in the way at which our house is set up and what we keep in our homes. And I just thought that was kind of interesting as you were mentioning that earlier.
That is so. That is so interesting to observe people's homes as a
when we go bless a house, or
right.
especially in this time of the year when we're doing that. So,
that's fascinating. And really, the notion of pausing. I mean, do you find that people, sort of are met with the obstacle of, well, I don't have time. I don't have time to stop and pay attention to what's really important. Is there a better way? Because they're saying I'm too busy, or I can't find the time, or my gosh, if I did that, then I miss the next 10 things that I had to get to. Do you find yourselves kind of running up against the busy, the I'm too busy to do that?
We do.
Yes,
We do. And
in
fact,
for sure.
Yeah, go ahead, Molly. You can tell them about what we do in our course.
Right. Well, even from a personal, when you talk about, sometimes, unfortunately, you have to kind of hit rock bottom, I think, to before you'll finally stop. You'll just keep trying to push through the stress until, sometimes almost mercifully, you hit a wall. That's what I went through in 2018, where you say, I can't go on like this. And that enables you to say, I have to do this differently. And so, we find that, would you say, Cynthia, as people come into our course, I mean, would you say we find that, just from, that's why people are coming, because they feel
Yeah.
stuck.
Right.
How do I go
Exactly.
forward, and that's what we want to help them do, is say, okay, it's okay. Sometimes, hitting that wall is the best thing that could have happened, because now you're ready.
Exactly.
You are ready to say, I don't want to live like this anymore.
And that is such
Right.
that's a big piece, right? Of what has to happen is people have to hit the why. The why do I have to change? Because it is hitting that rock bottom that you realize, okay, this is why I do have to stop, and everything else can't take priority, and all the menial tasks do have to go, because this is what I'm up against if I don't. And so I love that you guys talk about that. And talk about, how does self-care serve others? I mean, I know this is something, that we talk about a lot, and we get a lot of, I wouldn't say pushback or resistance, but, sort of the moment of, or the question of, but I'm not supposed to do that as a Christian or a follower of Christ. I'm supposed to be in a constant state of really serving others and putting others above myself. But how does self-care really serve others, from your perspectives?
Oh my goodness. It's amazing to see how people's lives change and their families' lives change when they start being intentional about their self-care. Because what happens, their health typically improves, they have more energy, they're not fatigued, they spend more time with their kids, they can give more undivided attention to their jobs, they're better employees, and then they also become a stabilizing and hopeful presence in this world. So their friends even notice a change in them and know that they can, rely on the person who's giving themselves self-care to be someone who is all of a sudden thoughtful and quiet and stable. And we just need that so much right now in our society. So besides changing our homes and our families' lives, we can change the world around us if we just start with ourselves.
In building on what you're saying to Cynthia, and really alluding to what you were sharing earlier, Roxanne, I think that so much of what we're in this culture that we're living in, and I think sometimes we're not even aware of. I think this is just one of these spiritual battles that the devil continuously kind of deceives us into believing, but that more is better, and that we have to continue to add more things on our list, and we almost kind of wear this badge of honor, and even within the church world, that the more that you are doing, then by definition, the better you are as a person, or that the more productive you are, and that's not always the case. And I think, we need some sort of stopgap, some sort of barriers for some boundaries that we put into place, because not everything that matters. I mean, I think that just because we think it doesn't mean it's actually true. And unless we have some sort of a mirror or some sort of a way that holds us accountable, I mean, the world, I tell this to Roxanne, all the time, there's never going to be in the Low household, there's never going to be a time where we don't have something to do. There's our world is always filling our calendars with a to-do list for all of us. And I think that's just in general in society. So I love the fact that you guys not only have this, this course, the 6 weeks to sanity. I think every one of us need to be in that. And I want to register myself for that.
Sign up.
But this beautiful, this beautiful ministry that the two of you are doing about being purposeful and intentional about being filled with less, that less is better. In much of our life. And so I know, Roxanne, I think that's something that's so much part of what we believe is in our own ministry as well.
Absolutely. And just, hearing you, Cynthia, sort of talk about being a stabilizing presence, that is something that, speaking of awareness too, Nick, what you were just talking about, do you guys find that sometimes people aren't necessarily aware of when their stress from doing too much bleeds into their relationships, their home, and things are sort of destabilized around them, but they're not exactly sure how they contribute to that or how doing too much is a part of that? Do you guys see that in people?
Yeah, we definitely do.
Yes. We are sponges. We are sponges of each other's moods. Even without, and especially now during this pandemic, when I know for myself, I'm home all day. My husband and I both work from home. I have 2 high schoolers working at home. And, you're, even without saying a word, your mood, it it fills the room, and when
so true.
when you're feeding off each other. And so that is why, exactly what Cynthia's saying, that it's never been more important for me to fill up, to because we're all home together, to do that work, to do that self-care, get that walk in, have my quiet time, so that I can create an environment in my home that is healthy, that I am stable. Especially when, for these, I think pandemic has been very difficult on our kids, high schoolers, even our college age
Absolutely.
kids. It's been very difficult. And I want to keep a mood that is positive. I want to create a legacy of self-care. And I mean, that's the best gift. If you can learn to do it for yourself, and your kids observe that, and them gain the tools to take care of themselves, then you are creating, not just for yourself, but a legacy of stillness and care and fruitfulness, that is going to be, I mean, very helpful to our communities right now, especially.
Such a positive way to reframe taking care of yourselves, that you are creating a legacy for someone else to learn how to live their life with intentionality, and that you're creating this sort of stabilizing, environment. So you are giving to others through giving to self. So I love the way you both really spoke about that. For those of you who are just tuning in, we are speaking with Molly Sabrin and Cynthia Damascus about how to live mindfully and with intentionality and simplicity. So moving on to some other, we have so many questions. We want to spend several hours with you both, but how do we avoid, for those of us who might be prone to perfectionism, or trying to, do this perfectly? How do we avoid the trap of getting too perfectionistic about the goals that we set for ourselves? I mean, I do see this happen. I was just speaking with a client the other day who we talked about her learning to take care of herself by going on a 1 mile run. But what she turned it into was, okay, after 3 days, I should be able to do it in, 20 seconds less time. And then 3 days after that, I should be able to do an extra half mile. So, and before she knew it, after 3 weeks, after any goal that we had around exercise, she became defeated because she couldn't keep up with her own demand, her own rigid expectation about how it should go. So, and I know this is a trap for a lot of people, and maybe you guys could talk a little bit about how we sort of set goals without getting too perfectionistic or rigid about what it should look like.
Well, one of the things that we like to make sure people understand is that we're not striving for perfection. Nobody is perfect. So we're not trying to get A's at everything. We're trying to get a B plus. So I think right there, it takes some pressure off, because most people can feel like they can do a B plus. And then the journey to get there, first of all, you have to connect them to their why. Why are they even striving for this goal? And if they can understand in a deep-seated way their purpose for trying to do this, and keep their eye on the purpose instead of the actual, reaching for the goal or the actual achieving whatever this is supposed to be, if they just keep looking at the why, that will keep propelling people. And then community support, I think that is so important, because when you're in a group of people who have the same, and I think that's why 6 Weeks of Sanity is such a successful course, because these groups of people get together who all have the same mindset about what they want to achieve in their lives. And they see other people falling down, getting up, falling down, getting up. And then suddenly it's okay. You're falling down, you're getting up. And you know what? Really, that's what you want. Because if you did everything to perfection right off the bat, you don't learn anything. You want to learn. You want to fail. You want to get back up again, because that's what makes you stronger and creates lasting change, not just temporary change.
Right. I think, we say this a lot, in sermons and in retreats that we share with people, is that if you don't know your why, the devil will show you his way. And, it's really, And that's in general in life. So, whatever project that you're working on, whatever goal that you're setting for yourself is being able to identify that why. And I love what you're sharing, because not only is it important to have that, to know that why, but also to be in an environment that will help you successfully do that. That's what's so great about church, and having an active involvement in a church, because, we, in many ways, in addition to our receiving Holy Community and being part of a dynamic worship on a Sunday morning, we're also getting our homework assignments. We're also getting the why. Why is this so important for us to live this life of faith, this active faith, this dynamic faith that God wants us to live in our life? But in order for us to know our why, we have to be in an environment that can help show us the way. And I think it's so important too, in our own lives, to be able to have that community. And it's one of the questions I think we should always be asking ourselves is, who's on the team that's helping us to fulfill that why?
Yes.
Who's in my village that's helping me to do that? Because if not, I do know someone and something that will help me show me his way, and his way will not provide that peace that I need in my life.
Yeah, I agree. And then I also like the idea of just getting 1% better every day. I
Right.
forgot who initiated that, but that whole idea of just 1% better, 1% better. You're still not perfect, but that's okay. Making progress.
Well, and I think I think the opposite is true as well. But still with the same rationale and reasoning that only 1% better is also being aware that it's so easy to fall into this rut, because you have people even within the church world, within our own churches, that are just simply doing the same old thing they do every single week. They kind of wake up in the morning, they go to church, they come back. They're in this routine, and in many ways, there's not really an opportunity for self-reflection. I was reading, I showed this past Sunday in our sermon that, only 13% of Christians read their Bibles on a day-to-day basis. I mean, that's extraordinary. Only 13%. So that means only 13% of Christians are making a time to read a word, a verse, a sentence. So
To give them the image they're trying to emulate.
right,
That's interesting.
or to give them the instructions of how to
Right.
live. And so the opposite of that perfectionism that some people can oftentimes fall in is the fact that there's no awareness. There's no type of self-reflection. And wait a minute, look around me. Am I looking at my house? Am I looking at my life inwardly? And, where am I at? And how that is that whatever's on the inside will always come out will always give birth to something on the outside, either positively or negatively. And so I think that's such a great, and I love that about it in our Orthodox Church, that, soon enough we're beginning this period of pre-Lent that's just kind of guiding us slowly but surely to just kind of turn our eyes, instead of being, out at all the tasks that we have to do. It's almost turning us towards ourselves and saying, hey, let's look inside, and to use your beautiful statement is, how do we fill ourselves with less during this,
And that's an uncomfortable process for many people, the turning within. I find that some people have such resistance to wanting to go there, right? To look at what might be going on within. But how do we reach our goals if we don't realize where we are along the path of that goal? That's always my question. And, just because we don't kind of tune into it doesn't mean it's not there operating covertly and affecting us. But I do find, I don't know if you guys sort of run into that, but then that it's not always a comfortable process to kind of take a look at our own lives and to take a look at how we're doing in relation to where we want to be. Sometimes it's uncomfortable.
Yes. But talking about that's one thing about perfectionism, I think, is unless you really own your weaknesses and are truly authentic, come into this as authentic as possible. Because what you're going to do is from the get-go say, I can't do this.
Right.
And you are going to tap in to you're going to cling to Christ every morning. Every morning you're going to say, help me do this, and get out of the way so he can do it through you. And that does require being in touch with your own fallenness, with your frailties, and owning them, and bringing those to Christ. Because I think the sooner that we cling to him, our why is going to be established. There's going to be a natural balance and moderation. Unless when we do it out of our own power, it becomes almost something we try to possess, something that we try to control. Whereas when we're resting in Christ as refuge and trying to make these changes in order to be more fruitful, you experience more of a gentle balance and a resilience to just keep trying, and to see it as a journey instead of, this thing you're trying to do perfectly.
Right. I love that. We are speaking with Molly Sabrin and Cynthia Damascus on just their great ministry called Filled with Less. You can go to their website at filledwithless.com. Outstanding work that they're doing. And we also invite you to join the conversation tonight. You could do so by calling us live right now at 1-855-237-2346. That's 1-855-237-2346. We also encourage you to just share some questions that you may have for Molly or Cynthia through our social media accounts. Not only is it on Ancient Faith Radio, so you should always be on social media and joining the accounts with Ancient Faith, which are Ancient Faith Radio. You can put that in the search engine, but also with the Lows at Louhs, the Lows. And we're getting some very beautiful comments that are coming in as well. I kind of wanted to just also, kind of share, build on what you were just sharing, Molly, because I think it's so important. Because if you're not careful, this can be simply all about the willpower or just motivating yourself. And I think it's so important, and you said it just beautifully, that it is connecting with Christ, that in that how Christ tells us in the Bible that apart from me, you'll never have that peace. And so I think that for me, it's reminding us all that, look, we can try to take these little items off of our to-do list. We can try to make sure that we're doing less of this and less of that. But at the end of the day, and you said it beautifully earlier, but why? Why are we doing this?
Who are we doing this for?
Right. And I think it's, as you were mentioning, Roxanne, earlier, is that God has a purpose for us. And that a lot of these things, although we feel are important, and some of them, don't get us wrong, they are important, but sometimes they can be distractions and they can be drainers, and can keep us from what God yearns for us to do. I wanted to ask you, I think for so many people, they hear, intentional living, live intentionally. But for many of them, they might be asking, and we're so much about this as being very practical, is what does that look like? What would you say intentional living looks like for us?
Well, for me, it means that I use a planner for my life. I don't use a date book or a calendar, which are reactive. You're just writing down the orthodontist appointment and the this and the that as they come into you. But I actually use a planner, a quarterly planner. And each night I write down the top 3 things that I need to get done the next day so that I know when my head hits the pillow the following evening, I know what success looks like instead of just a feeling of what just happened. So using a planner is very big for me. And then I use daily routines for self-care, morning routine and an evening routine, and they form the scaffolding of my life. And whenever I start to feel overwhelmed, in fact, I was just listening to a podcast recently with Michael Hyatt and his daughter Megan, and they were talking about how when they're overwhelmed, the first thing that usually goes is their routines. And because of that, they know that the first thing that has to be put back together is routine. And so I make sure I have these in my day because that's what drives my intentionality.
I love that. It's like, as we oftentimes mention is if you're not making the time, if you're not being intentional with that time, or show me your calendar, I'll kind of show you your life type of, mindset. I know that's something that I do. I said that when I was on your show recently, I was sharing the same thing. Is that for me in my own, I literally have in my planner, a time for prayer, a time to work on scheduling it, because I know that for me there's just so many distractions that can get into the way, and I totally agree with the of having those routines. And some oftentimes, I think when we do get so busy, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but I think sometimes I notice that whenever I get busy or when I get stressed or inundated with all this stuff, that sometimes what I perceive is the problem may not necessarily be the problem, but I'm looking for the easiest thing to kind of take off of my to-do list. And I think sometimes, I think people sometimes are just making a knee-jerk reaction that may not really get at the core of really what the real issue is.
Yes.
So true. And
I agree.
Molly, how about for you? What does intentional living look like for you?
Well, I was talking with a friend the other day. I'm like, I am very high maintenance these days in that I have, which is, I never was before. I was always such a kind of impulsive, fly by the seat of my pants, for 40 years. And so this is a change for me that's only about 2 years old. And it is, it involves, like Cynthia said, non-negotiable routines. So for me, that means every morning I'm up before anybody else. I have my, get my coffee, I start the coffee, prayer in front of my icon corner. I do my daily reading. I do 10 minutes of silence. And if I can, I read a chapter of a spiritual book or motivating book and journal. That time is, I can't even imagine, that time is everything to me. Because like I said, if I don't plug in to Christ, if I don't set the mindset right there and choose right then all day to guard my tongue, to practice gratitude, to listen for the directives. So many times we're like, I don't know what to do. Like we're scattered. I don't know where to, and because we're not quiet, we can't hear. And when we make white space in our life, like suddenly what we're supposed to do next, the good in front of us, it reveals itself. So that morning routine is super important. And then I also have, I walk with a friend every day, make sure I get 30 minutes of my body moving. And I also do 45 minutes before I start work of home maintenance. Because I noticed that if I just, it never is completely done, but if I can keep that 45 minutes a day, it keeps things pretty calm. So it's never a fiasco. You know what I mean?
What a great routine. My goodness, you tackle home and social support and physical activity and silence and prayer and journaling. I think that's a fabulous routine.
And it's taken a while to get there. And I had to make some hard decisions. Like one decision I had to make that was difficult for me in order to, these routines were so important to me to create this life of calm that I actually gave up a small portrait photography business. I just couldn't fit it in. Like I had a lot of good things in my life, but I couldn't fit all the good things. And Cynthia helped me to say, what are my priorities? It's my family, it's my local community, and it's filled with less. And that photography business did not fit. I couldn't do that and have the routines that I needed to live a life of simplicity and intention. So I had to make some hard decisions.
Healthy Minds, Healthy Souls with Father Nick and Dr. Roxanne Lowe will be back in a moment. Give them a call at 855-237-2346. That's 855-237-AF Radio. They would love to hear from you. Are you struggling in your walk with Christ? Do you want to rediscover your reason for living, the person you were created to be? Renewing You, a priest, a psychologist, and a plan gives you the keys to unlock areas of your life that hold you back from fully experiencing the renewal and transformation God has in mind for you. Co-authored by a priest and a psychologist, Father Nicholas and Dr. Roxanne Lowe, Renewing You combines principles of spiritual growth with psychological tools to help you become your best self, fully connected with God's purpose for you. To purchase this book, please go to store.ancientfaith.com. That's store.ancientfaith.com.
Healthy Minds, Healthy Souls with Father Nick and Dr. Roxanne Lowe will be back in a moment. Give them a call at 855-237-2346. That's 855-237-AF-RADIO. They would love to hear from you.
Okay, this is Bobby Maddox, and we're having some technical difficulties, and we're going to try to reconnect with the Lows, and we'll be back with you shortly. Hang on.
Okay, thank you.
There to spoil. This is all against the conscience. It is the same about food. A man is perfectly able to satisfy the needs of his body with bread, vegetables, and a few olives.
We're back with Healthy Minds, Healthy Souls and Father Nick and Dr. Roxanne Lowe. Do you have a question for the Lows? Call in now at 855-237-2346. That's 855-237-AF-RADIO. Here once again is Father Nick and Dr. Roxanne Lowe.
blowing my mind about reading this and again making me experience the wonders of God is that we're living in a day and age where people are really trying to care for the environment. I mean, as well as I know, there's a new nonprofit or organization every 10 minutes telling us of how the oceans are saturated with sea plastic and how the air quality is terrible for us to breathe and the trees are dying and the fish are suffering, and there's always something going on with the state of our environment. And what I found so interesting about this is with my work in public health and with my work in nutrition and wellness, yes, so much of our relationship to health, it is in relationship with the nature and the earth. In fact, there is tons of scientific research to show
Hello?
and then the landfill is covered, and then there's no oxygen getting to this food waste. This leads to the production of methane gas. And we know that methane gas is a potent greenhouse gas. And so when we're hearing that our ozone is being depleted and things of this nature, there's really...
Okay, we should be good. Are you there, the Lowe's?
We're here.
Yeah, okay. Very good.
Okay, so it looks like we were having some technical difficulties. Yeah. Molly and Cynthia, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
I can now. Yes.
Okay, great. I'm not sure what happened, but these are good opportunities for us to practice some of our living with intentionality and inner peace. Talk to our listeners a little bit about what tools or habits that you really feel are essential for transforming a mindset from negative and despondent to really positive and hopeful.
Yeah, I think, again, what we talk about, that spiritual reading, that time in the morning, that really helps shift your mindset, because you're reading, especially when you're reading from such wisdom. Like I read your book, I read Renewing You, I read something from the Church Fathers or from Gratitude in Life's Trenches. Those are some of the recent ones I've been reading. And it does help you change the way you think, to make those mindset shifts. And that's really important, as is, gratitude is huge. When you are, especially when I'm feeling frightened or overwhelmed, when I start listing the things, I start thinking, I feel good today. I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for this roof over my head. And it like awakens in you. It opens your eyes to the loving hand of Christ in everything, in the simple little details of your day. But you have to practice it. And again, like Cynthia was talking about, really seeking out relationships that are uplifting. We try to provide that in our Filled with Less community, so that people always have a cheerleader in their corner, other people who are seeking peace, seeking positivity, and looking for what is still very hopeful and possible, and to expose yourself to those kind of people and those relationships as often as possible.
One of the questions I had for the two of you also was just knowing how over the last year we have been dealing so much with this pandemic. And, typically, there are moments of stress. There may be weeks of stress or maybe months of stress. But now we are working into well over a year of this prolonged stress that we are seeing by this pandemic. And it seems like it's going to continue. And by God's grace, we will continue to be vaccinated and that things will will get better. But the effects of this, the effects of that stress long term, obviously, we still don't know yet, but we do know it's impacting so much of our relationships. So how do we protect our relationships really in a time of prolonged stress, especially during the season of this pandemic?
I think being aware that it is a difficult time so that we are on guard. I don't trust myself just to wake up and just go with my impulses in a strained time. I absolutely know I have to put the work in, so I'm prepared for this new day. I'm praying through every conversation. I've really been working hard on less micromanaging, less trying to control others, and instead doing the work that I am called to do and praying for others. I think we can really ignore the own work we're supposed to be working on by trying to control our family members, control our coworkers, control anything else. And just learning to really guard my tongue, say far less, pray a lot more, not only strengthen those connections, but again, allows me to get out of the way and let God act in the lives of my loved ones, which requires, when we're together all the time, people are going to have bad moods. They're going to have ups and downs that are necessary for their growth and for their salvation. And so we need to give them space to experiencing some of those without always trying to either, lecture them out of it, or even trying sometimes to step in and solve when it's something that other people have to experience. And when we're in such close proximity, we have to be really careful about giving space to people to learn those lessons without us always interfering.
I absolutely love that. What I hear you talking about is sort of the notion of accepting the moment exactly as it is without trying to insist on it being a certain way or a different way. And really, when we remove our control in those moments, there's such a peace that comes over you. And I think that one of the most beautiful things is in that moment, you also recognize, where God is completely in control. And when we lean into Him and His work and what He can do, we always say that prayer can go all the places that we can't. We can't affect somebody's heart. We can't soften. We can't change a mood, but He can. And when we kind of let go of trying to control that and remember He is in control of this moment and we accept it exactly as it is, I find that that's often the times when it shifts, right? Rather than our insistence. So that's absolutely beautiful. I just love what you're sharing. And what tips would you have for really staying motivated? People are working from home. I know myself have been home since March, and it's really different than kind of getting up, going into the office, and kind of the morning routine, speaking of routines, is very different. But what tips do you have for our listeners about really staying motivated and on task if you are working from home?
I really recommend that everyone set an intention for the day. So it's not just get up, go sit at the computer and be led, wherever your emails take you. It's here's my intention for the day. The night before, as I had mentioned before, I always write down my 3 top goals that I want to reach. And then I make sure to stay motivated that I also build in white space, because I think when we're working from home, it's even more difficult to find time to take a break and to make sure you eat lunch or go for a walk when you need it. Those are also life-giving and renew you and renew your creativity. So I think that making sure that you are living intentionally and taking time for self-care can make all the difference for being productive at home.
But we are back now, and we've been talking with Molly, Sabrin, and Cynthia Damascus about their great ministry called Filled with Less. You can find out all about them and their great ministry by going to the website filledwithless.com. In the remaining moments of our show, I wanted to ask you both, what tips, what tips do you have for, when we're having a bad day or when we're just kind of like not feeling excited or just kind of drained, or just all that we've been impacted with is just kind of just draining our energy. What would you give some practical tips that our listeners can just simply apply in their life, just a typical kind of a blah kind of a day?
I think the first thing you can do is definitely get outside and go for a walk to clear your head, get your blood pumping. A change of scenery is going to help. Molly has this wonderful thing she does called the 30-minute sweep, where she just takes 30 minutes and picks up around her house and just cleans or gets done whatever needs to be done. That can be rejuvenating because you've just accomplished something solid. You could create a warm interaction with a family member, or you could just do a brain dump. Let's say you're overwhelmed and you just get out a pen and paper and you just write down everything that's on your mind and in your brain and get it out. And that will typically lift you up.
I love that. I mean, really, again, you also see maybe what is creating the blah day in that moment. But just the notion of what I hear you saying, Cynthia, too, is get moving, right? Whether it's a 30-minute sweep or whether it's getting outside, there is something pretty powerful about getting moving. I mean, I remember even, our daughter coming home today, Nick, she was saying, oh, I'm just so tired. I don't feel like doing anything. I'm just so tired. And, I was insisting on her getting outside, just go for a 1 mile walk. That's just a 1 mile walk. And no, I'm too tired. Well, I end up driving our son to soccer, and I come back, it's maybe 6 o'clock now, and I'm coming in the neighborhood, and I see her running along in the neighborhood. And it's the most just funny moment where I'm going to roll down the window, and she's got this big smile on her face, and she's like, Mom, this is great. This is great. Life is great. Everything's great. Just getting moving, it's like wakes up the entire soul. And after that, what did she do next? She came home, she's like another hour of stuff outside and playing with her ball and doing whatever. And the whole evening was made different by a 1 mile walk or run, whatever she chose to do with it. But it was like, sometimes I think the anticipation of movement when we're tired seems beyond our capacity, but I always say just start, because once you do, it's so life-giving, and we're rewarded almost instantaneously because of God's design. So I just love what you're sharing, and just how simple, just get moving. It's so even if you don't want to, just remember that, even the tiredest of girls can be smiling and bubbly after a 1 mile walk.
Yes. Rejuvenate your whole body by sending oxygen into all of your cells, lowers your soul levels, resets your adrenal hormones. I mean, God made us so beautifully, and movement is the key to all of that. He created that in us, and it's definitely something to take advantage of.
I think I was just going to ask you, if there's someone tuning in to our radio show tonight and they are saying, you know what, I need to be filled with less. I need to kind of just better manage my time, better manage my emotions, better manage just my life, my spiritual walk of faith. What would be, I'd love to hear from both of you, but, what would be one thing that you'd say that they could start tonight? Like they could get off of this podcast and they can just simply say, you know what, this is one thing that I can do tonight. Well, what would both of you say is an area that they could do?
You want to go first, Molly?
Sure. So I think if I had to start with one thing, okay, I'm going to have two answers. One spiritual, one practical, even though they're connected. Get ready, set your alarm 15 minutes earlier. Just try it. Get up, sit, give yourself just 5 minutes of silence that next day, just to set your intention for the day and to invite Christ into your day. And then practical, if you feel overwhelmed and don't know where to start, I would say clean out a drawer, clean out a closet. It's going to give you a boost, an adrenaline boost. You're going to feel good. It doesn't take much, but that one healthy decision will lead to another and another and another. And it really is like just clearing out a space. It really makes you feel very joyful no matter what's going on around you. It's just like an instant mood boost. That's what I would say.
So true.
You agree with me, and you would say the same thing, Cynthia?
Yeah, pretty close. I would say exactly the same things. And then I would also if you're in a place of overwhelm where you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm so busy. I just have things going all day long, all week long. I want you to look at your schedule and just really say, okay, is everything here something that A, only I can do? B, does it line up with my top priorities in life, my top 3 priorities, or is this just something someone else is expecting of me, like my child's school, or just something that doesn't line up? And then, I would say just simplify and get rid of the non-negotiable, or just keep the non-negotiables and get rid of the things that are negotiable. And that will simplify things right off the bat.
And using, our prayer life, our connection with God to be the filter by which we look through those to see, because sometimes it becomes so difficult to truly identify really what is a priority, because for many of us, we think that everything that we are doing needs to get done.
Exactly. And if somebody's expecting of me, like the kids school, that's such a great example, because everybody makes it this emergency that we have to respond to please for our priorities.
Well, we want to thank you both, Molly and Cynthia, for taking the time to join us tonight. Friends, we encourage you to check out their websites, filledwithless.com, filledwithless.com. There's so many practical ways that you can really apply just living a more intentional, God-centered life that will bring so much a level of peace that for many of us we are so yearning to experience. So we thank you again, Molly and Cynthia, for being with us. We want to thank all of the beautiful people at Ancient Faith for helping us to put on this show, and especially to Bobby Maddox, who's producing our show tonight. We wish you all the best. Stay connected to us all through our social media platforms, all at thelows.com. And if you're interested in receiving a daily inspirational message, you can do so by going to our website, thelows.com, LOUHS.com, and click on the subscribe button. Have a blessed day, everyone, and stay strong in your walk of faith.